My next guest says this often ignores how the technology is pushing inclusive growth for consumers in emerging countries like Asia and Africa. Well, joining us now is Andy Kuper, Chief Executive of LeapFrog Investments, a venture capital private equity firm with a focus on EM and impact investing. Andy, thank you so much for joining us. Now, first of all, this was an extremely interesting angle because you're right that AI, especially in emerging markets, can mean inclusive growth as long as you're not left behind.
Absolutely. Well, great to be here. And I think the dialogue globally around AI is missing a huge piece. It's focused on the arms race between the likes of OpenAI and Anthropic. But actually, the really interesting thing here is the way billions of customers are joining the economy and are engaging in a much more intensive way. You don't even need to be able to read or write these days in order to engage, in order to get a bank account in India, in order to acquire different financial services, healthcare, education. These things all are now possible for you because of a natural language form of engagement. And you're seeing companies that are growing based on this AI capability that were completely unthinkable 5 or 10 years ago. We have a company called Healthify that provides coaching on nutrition and food and weight loss to over 40 million people in India. And that company basically allows the AI to talk to people in their own language, knowing what their own local cuisine is. No individual could say, I know in 100 languages what the local cuisine needs are, and serves those people. And if you think about India as the diabetes capital of the world, the loss of weight for these folks and the improvement in their cholesterol is dramatic. So you're seeing social impact and you're seeing business opportunities at a scale that was inconceivable thanks to AI.
But Andy, I mean, there must be an entry to barrier, right? I mean, I had a conversation with Queen Maxima of the Netherlands at UNGA, and she does a lot on financial health. And actually, the numbers of people that don't have a bank account now is absolutely staggering. And I don't know whether it is because it's, you know, a lack of access or reading and writing, or it's just that it's not in their world.
So our world is changing dramatically in this respect. You're right, and Queen Maxima and I just had dinner actually, and there are 1.4 billion people who lack bank accounts and 740 million people who are illiterate. The amazing thing about AI engagement now is that while we in the developed world are often using text and text prompting to continue to engage, people in the developing world are primarily using voice and engagement. And so that changes things dramatically. Also, if you look at those people in the developing world, here in the UK, we would say, well, is AI going to improve the lives of people like us? So when they do surveys, 42% of people say that. In South Africa, in India, it's 76%. And in Nigeria, it's 95%. And why is that? Because people are beginning to engage with this technology in a way that is completely different and is allowing for these customers that didn't sit on the grid before or only consumed a limited amount to consume vastly more. If you are an investor like us, a capital allocator driving returns for your limited partners, and you look at this, you say, wow, sure, OpenAI is the picks and shovels, but there is a gold rush going on here, and we can be backing the best miners across our portfolio to really generate high value for our investors here, and we can be changing the world for those individuals who have lacked these essential services for so long.
I know you touched that at the beginning, but what specific sectors? So if you look at healthcare, is it the app, or is it, you know, the software that goes into that AI?
So I think all of this is on the table. What we focus on at LeapFrog is the emerging consumers and their actual experience, so B2C companies. Today, our companies reach 560 million people across 35 different emerging markets, the likes of India, Vietnam, Indonesia, Nigeria, Kenya. If you really take that into account, that is more people than all of the European Union and the UK, or more people than all of North America. And those customers were off the grid or very difficult to reach just 10 or 15 years ago. So now what we're going to see is that accelerate. Instead of 4 billion customers, now you have 8 billion. But once there are AI engagement and those people have AI enablers and agents, you're going to see 16 billion or 20 billion actual potential customers. And that completely changes the total addressable market, completely changes the kinds of companies we invest in.
And I guess it's a little bit too soon right now to know who the real winners and losers are, because it's so rapidly changing in terms of technology.
Well, that's why you need people on the ground, investors on the ground who have built a capability in these sorts of areas. So we invest in financial services, healthcare, and climate solutions. And you can actually see a number of the features of these winners. You can see if they're technology and AI enabled. You can see if they're operating in spaces that can be easily disintermediated by AI. For example, insurance. We all know how painful it is to make a claim in insurance, and it can take weeks or months in Sydney, London, or New York. Well, we have a company called SoftLogic in Sri Lanka, where 97% of claims are paid in the first 24 hours.
I've never heard of that. That's almost unbelievable.
Right, and it's the top life insurer in the country. This is not small, and the number 2 health insurer. Further, you're basically enabling people to submit very simple documents or very simple bits of evidence, but because of the AI, it's able to detect fraud, it's able to check treatments, able to do all of this very quickly. Now, if you're seeing that in developing markets, it's going to come here. It's only a question of time.
And it's a little bit like Deliveroo, right? I mean, they give you a refund quite quickly, but it's on algorithms. So there's always a concern about biases. I mean, again, as we use more and more of these products, do they get better?
Correct. It does get better, and the wonderful thing about very large numbers of people reached is that you have a large N, you have a large capacity to revise and improve these things. But there is no doubt that we need principles for responsible AI. We need to be able to audit for bias. We need to be able to track the reasoning logic of the AI. I will say, though, that in the developing markets, in particular, the optimistic story is far stronger than the pessimistic story. So while there may be some biases creeping in and there may be work that you need to do to improve the algorithm, the fundamental thing here is that these customers are being empowered, they're acquiring more services, and you're creating industry champions at a pace and a speed that is unprecedented in human history. I mean, this is why we at LeapFrog think that the AI revolution goes beyond this analogy of the printing press. It really is like the development of farming or the French Revolution, which is an agentic revolution, where suddenly the forms of agency, who has agency, and their sense of having destiny, power over their own lives, really comes through. And this makes AI, I think, much more exciting even than the folks spruiking it for data centers in the US like to talk about, because it is a whole different change in who acts, how they act, and therefore how companies can act and how allocators can allocate capital.
I know we've had a couple of conversations with Google. I mean, if the barrier to regulation is lower, how do they make sure it's safe everywhere? Andy, thank you so much for joining us. Andy Kuper there, the Chief Executive of LeapFrog Investments.